It's 6:44. Let's have a look at some of the newspapers this morning. Start with the Times. Sunday Times has the Conservatives heading for their worst electoral defeat in history, according to what they're calling a new mega poll.
Meanwhile, the Mail leads with Angela Rayner branded a hypocrite for targeting the Prime Minister's wife over tax affairs.
In the Sunday Telegraph, a warning today about how Labour's net zero plans could leave Britain at the mercy of China.
And the Observer leads with the UK's previously undisclosed legal advice to Israel.
The Sunday Mirror has a friendship between the Princess of Wales and Giovanna Fletcher, who's a winner of I'm a Celebrity.
You didn't sound that confident in that bit.
Never heard of her.
Who? No, I'm sure it's fine. Joining us now to go through the papers is writer and columnist and journalist Emma Wolfe and editor of Spiked, Tom Slater. Thank you very much. Happy Easter to you both.
Happy Easter.
Looking remarkably refreshed, considering we've stolen an hour off you.
Yes.
Well, the universe has stolen an hour.
Yeah.
Where's it gone?
It's very bad.
We want it back.
Emma, can we have a look at the Sunday Times and this mega poll, which is frankly shocking.
Well, I was going to say it's shocking, but it's sort of not. We know this, but it's devastating, isn't it? It's devastating for the Conservatives. It literally puts the seal on all hopes. You don't come back from a majority. Labour are not going to lose the next election on this footing. This is a poll of 15,000 people. This gives the Tories 98 seats. It gives Labour 468 seats, a majority of 286.
I mean, that's...
It's got cabinet ministers, it's got possibly the Prime Minister and the Chancellor losing their seats. It really is devastating. The Tories...
We're not heading for a hung parliament, then.
On this forecast, the Tories would become an England-only party. They would be wiped out in Scotland and Wales. They would lose every single one of the red wall seats that were gained in 2019 under Labour, under Boris Johnson, and it would be the biggest ever defeat for the Conservatives, bar none, bigger than their 1906 general election defeat. So it really isn't good. And let me just be really boring for a minute. It's the method of polling that's interesting. This is MRP, multi-level regression and post-stratification, which is pretty accurate. It was pretty accurate in 2017, it was pretty accurate in 2019. I'm sure Tom is an expert on this, but it's an accurate way of doing polling. So I think this means a bit more than just another poll.
Yeah. Are you an expert in this?
I'm not an expert in polling per se, but MRPs are because they look at it almost seat by seat. They rather than just taking those crude national numbers, you
I see.
apply it to each of those constituencies.
She was kind of implying that Tom is boring, so he would know what Emma was talking about.
Fill in the boring gaps. No, but it is so staggering, isn't it, when you consider how quickly this decline has set in. I mean, we can all see why. I mean, some of it's quite prosaic reasons. No incumbent government is going to survive double-digit inflation, and you've had all of these external shocks. You've had a pandemic, and obviously their handling of that was atrocious in many respects. But nevertheless, the fact that they've gone from talk of 10 more years in power, a brand-new Tory coalition of working-class Northern and Midlands voters, as well as their traditional shies, to being completely routed is really staggering. The one thing that I'm convinced of, though, is that even if Keir Starmer wins by quite a considerable measure, it's going to be oddly soft at the same time. You look at the surveys and the focus groups, people don't really... It's not even that they're not necessarily energised by Keir Starmer. They still don't really know who he is. So I think that will be interesting as to how long that honeymoon period is, because of the fact that they're voting for change, but they're not necessarily voting for Labour and Keir Starmer, if that makes sense.
Or they're staying at home, Tom, because I think it's going to be, in terms of turnout, it's going to be absolutely crucial. I know so many Conservatives, ideological Conservatives, who are just thinking, what is there to vote for? They can't quite go as far as reform. And they're thinking, I'll just stay home. People who want to vote, but don't feel there is anything for them to vote for.
On the big issues that people care about, will we see anything significantly different? Because I just think they'll want to see, they'll need to woo over the Tory voters or who've led to them their votes, if you like.
Well, I think both parties have drifted towards the centre. That's what they do, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Although the Conservatives is also being pulled to the right. So, and look at where reform have come in such a short time. I mean, really, up to, 10, 12% in the polls. So No, I don't feel wildly different. I don't think they're offering anything wildly different between Sunak and Starmer, and they both feel very, very bland and very, very blank. Neither of them is exciting or inspiring the public.
That's what's so depressing about it. It feels like we've gone back to the kind of factory reset mode of British politics, where you do just have competing flavours of blancmange. And that was the one very good thing about Brexit, I think, amongst many good things about it, was the fact that it forced politics to kind of respond to what people wanted.
But it also became quite vitriolic.
But sometimes I think it became vitriolic because of the attempt to stop it more than anything else, really. But but at the same time, you do need politics to reflect where people are at. If you've got two parties which are basically kind of dancing on the head of a pin, I don't think that's good for democracy either.
No.
Should we move on to the Telegraph, Tom? This is Rishi's Easter message, where you've got Keir Starmer looking forward, change, rebirth, regrowth, etc., etc., and Rishi is reflecting in his Easter message.
It's not hard to read the kind of political tones to this. As you say, you've got Labour saying maybe it's time for renewal, it's time for change, and you've got Rishi Sunak saying it's time to pause and reflect, which I think kind of translates as please give us another give us another look. You don't even have to vote for us. Just give us another look. Yes. So this is obviously, you know, there's all the kind of warm words and rhetoric one would expect, talking about the importance of faith at a time like this. Rishi Sunak specifically talking about the contributions of Christians up and down the country, as well as the brutal treatment of them in certain parts around the world, which still carries on to this day. But as you say, you can't help but read the politics into this, and it does seem to reflect what we have been talking about, which is Labour riding high and the Tories desperately asking for the public to give them a second chance.
Is there anything we should make of it, the fact that Keir Starmer put out a video message, whereas Rishi just put out basically a tweet?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because at times like this, anything which is read into on so many different levels, you know, what are they trying to say? Are they putting in more effort, what have you? But I dare say that the nation is not on tenterhooks waiting to hear what either of these two have to say over the bank holiday weekend.
No, we're not, are we?
I think people are more interested in what's in their Easter egg.
Well, sadly it's the case, but I don't say that an Easter message from two politicians in the year of a general election is never going to just be...
Don't really look for spiritual leadership.
No.
Or leadership at all.
Emma, when Labour win, which is what the Sunday Times is saying, the Sunday Telegraph saying that Labour's net zero plans will leave us at the mercy of China.
Well, yeah, it's Claire Coutinho saying this, who, by the way, is a close pal or close ally of Rishi Sunak. It's convenient, isn't it, that she suddenly is criticising Labour's net zero plans. So their plan is to basically make us green, or to get us to convert Britain to clean power by 2030, which is only 5 years ahead of the Tories' alleged plans for 2035. But anyway, she's going full-on attack. She's saying that Labour's dangerous net zero plans leave us overly reliant on Beijing, on their batteries, on their cables, on their wires, on their electricity, Chinese-made metals, all of that kind of stuff. She's saying that, you know, at a time when we're just moving away, we're trying to move away from... She's the Energy Security Secretary. We're trying to move away from our over-reliance on Russian oil and gas. And Labour's plans, according to Claire Coutinho, are going to make us over-reliant, dangerously reliant on China, and are going to threaten our ability to keep the lights on. I mean, she goes for it.
But how is Labour's plan, apart from the fact they're slightly faster, how are they any different? With that 5-year difference between the plans, it's not going to be a difference. They're suddenly producing batteries, cabling, and all the rest.
And neither of them have made any proper long-term plans. We've seen Starmer, U-turning anyway. We haven't got long-term plans in place. You can't build nuclear power stations in a year. You just can't. There
minimum 5 years.
They keep turning around. But they are saying that, you know, they're worried about this. The plan is unfeasible, and that we will be that we'll be in the hands of China. Which, you know, China is a big threat at the moment, so you can see
kind of have a point
where she's coming from, but you can see also how she's trying to shift the narrative, take the attack to Labour on something that, I don't know, most people in the pubs up and down the country aren't really, you know, getting that worked up about right now.
No. But a lot of people are talking about football. Tom,
absolutely.
What's happening here? This is the front page of the Sun on Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, so there's been a sort of warning issued to England fans as they head over to Euro 2024 about the threat of terrorism and about concerns, particularly recently given that ISIS-K attack in Moscow, where almost 150 people lost their lives, absolutely brutal. But also, in recent years, there have been increasing kind of attacks in and around football stadiums. Remember the Sweden-Belgian qualifier?
Yes.
not that long ago where a few Sweden fans lost their lives. There was also, it's kind of forgotten now, but during the Paris attacks in 2015, one of the attacks, one of the bombings was at the Stade de France, where France were playing Germany at the time. So whilst up until this point we haven't seen as many kind of attacks targeting football, it's obviously always going to be a big concern given the numbers of people who are turning out. There's also a lot of discussion around the way in which this could be a target, not just for Islamist terrorists, but also concerns about other kind of forms of extremism. Use of drones is one thing that's noted here. So, and just talking about all the measures which are being used to kind of throw a ring of steel around the
It's taken part in Germany, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
And various different teams, but also the fans themselves, and making sure that extra level of checks and security, even instituting kind of border checks in a way you wouldn't normally see in landlocked European Germany, just to try and assuage this concern.
Is Germany on a higher terror alert than we are at the moment?
That I'm not sure, but I imagine it will be kind of similar as far as they haven't been targeted themselves recently. But there was that concern, particularly in the wake of October 7th, and there were a few foiled Islamist terrorist plots, Hamas-linked terrorist plots, one of which in Germany itself. So I think naturally concerns are going to be riding very high as a consequence of that.
Yeah, I mean, that would, if I was going to that, it would worry me. It would. It's got to be borne in mind, but do you let it scare you off? I mean,
I think die-hard fans will be making their way out there, and we know that there's been some trouble with, fans who are planning to go from here. But it's a big sporting summer, and there are going to be lots of these, raised terror threat alerts. When you've got, as you say, when you've got huge amounts of people gathered in one place. And they're big targets, aren't they, these events?
Well, yeah. And
I would still go.
Are.
I would still go. Terror works by terrorising. You don't give in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember in my local shopping centre, not very long ago, there was armed police all wandering about and things. And you sort of think, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But you've just got to sort of
get
on with it,
don't you? Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah. Oh dear, it's worrying though. It's going to worry people. Lovely, Emma, Tom. We shall see you both a little bit later on. Look forward to that. But in the meantime, it's Easter, so we had a lovely day yesterday, but I don't think it's going to last.
I think it might be raining.
I think it might be just a tad. Here's Craig Snell.